episode number 44. Hello, you're listening to the Smart Women in Business podcast. My name is Jane Mackay from Jane Mackay Communications, and on this show, we talk to smart women in business all over the world about starting, building, and creating the business and life of your dreams while having incredibly honest, in-depth, and rich conversations with amazing women in business who will inspire you to become a smart woman in business. Recording on, check. And we smile and breathe. Hello and you made me laugh. Hello and welcome to the Smart Women in Business vlog and podcast. I'm your host, Jane Mackay from Jane Mackay Communications, marketing consultant and coach who works with women across the world to build the business of their dreams. Today, I'm talking to Lindsay Hotmeyer, copywriter and brand coach who helps women business owners grow heart and soul aligned businesses. Creator of Paragon and the Unbrand Method, Lindsay has helped more than 347 clients ditch one-size-fits-all frameworks and formulas, and since 2016, her approach has empowered her clients to create $10,000 to $1 million campaigns, all without losing sight of their true, authentic selves. Lindsay has been a featured expert at Content Marketing Institute, 17 Ways to Beat Back Writer's Block and Win, Inbound, Content Marketing World, the Copywriter Club IRL, Found Conference, Shine Bootcamp, and her message has been shared with podcast audiences around the globe, like today. Lindsay lives in the Midwest with her husband and is an almost empty nester mum to 4 kids. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thanks so much for having me. So excited to chat.
I love it. I love a chat. Really great to have you, because we were saying off air, we're really closely aligned in what we do and how we show up in our business and how we empower our clients. So tell me about your business journey, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So, that goes way back to 1995, which feels incredibly a long time ago. Our youngest son the other day said something about how we're closer to 2050 than we are to 1990. And my husband and I just looked at each other with this empty, like, oh my word, we have arrived.
I don't want to know that.
Way back in 95, graduated from high school, went off to college. And, in those days, I knew that I loved to write. I knew that I loved language. I knew that that was my gift. But I didn't know what I could do with that beyond either be a high school English teacher or be a journalist. Like, that's what I thought my 2 options were.
Same.
Yeah. And so I chose teaching because I knew I wanted to connect with others, that I wanted to make an impact in the lives of others. And I did that for 3 years. And when I had our second child, I stepped out and I'm like, I'm not going back to the classroom. I'm going to be home for a while. I'm going to have more babies. And so let's just push pause on what's happening. And so in about a 10-year period was kind of my period of not just momming, but just self-discovery, because I didn't step out of the workforce completely. In that time, I did all sorts of different things. Like, I was a legal secretary for a while. I was a nonprofit executive. Let's see, what else did I do? I was a community activist, and I was an adjunct professor for a lot of that time. And so I did all of these different things. And it was really that community activist role that I got thrust into. Like, I didn't want to do it. And I think that's the story of lots of people who get called into something. But that's where I really discovered, okay, the way that I'm going to impact my world and make a difference is through the written word. And so I went back to school, got my master's in professional writing, not really knowing what I was going to do. Still, I still didn't know about this world of copywriting. I just knew I didn't want to be a creative writer. So I'll just do professional writing and it'll land me where it needs to. And it did. I, with that degree, got a job with a small private university, and I did the marketing and comms for the admissions office. And I describe that about 2 years, I say that was really my master's in marketing. That's where I learned to just strip down comm flows, to build things from the ground up, to really look at the data, to really listen to the audience around me. I loved that job. I loved my boss. And when my boss quit, I quit. And at that point, I knew that either I'm going to drive an hour plus one way just to get the kind of job that I need to get and make the money I need to make, or I just try to do this. I try to take my freelance life that I had in that 10 years of raising kids. And that was another thing that I did, dabbled in freelancing. I try to reestablish those connections and make a go of my business. And so within the first 3 months of trying that, well, I dabbled before I quit my full-time job. And I said, when I'm making as much freelancing as I am at this job, I'll quit. And so 3 months in, I quit. And the day that I quit, I landed a contract that was 2/3 of my salary, which sounds impressive until you really understand that private schools don't pay that much to begin with. And so it's not that impressive, but it was still like,
You're like,
okay,
go me.
yes, I'm doing something. So that was 2016 that I stepped out, this big leap of faith, not knowing, am I going to do this? Is this going to survive? Am I going to survive this? That was 2016. And now here I am. So that's my business journey. That's kind of how I got to be here.
Yeah.
Just a really messy, non-linear way.
It sounds quite similar to mine. It's that no one mentioned copywriting at school. I loved writing at school. Copywriting's been around for eons, but no one went, hey, there's this great thing. If you're good at writing, go and do this. It's that English teacher path or the academia path. It's like, I don't want to do that. So yeah, interesting. Mirrors my story a lot. And then you go and do the masters and go, oh yeah, I could do writing for a job. Look at this. This is fun.
I know. It was like this secret job that only, these popular white men had and nobody else knew about it. And I'm like, if I had known then, like, think where I'd be now.
My mother-in-law was a copywriter in the 60s in New York. And she was the first one that sort of told me about it. And then I went off and looked at agency work and stuff. I was like, oh, I want to do this. This is fun. And yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, the secret society of white men. So your business obviously doesn't look like it did when it started in 2016. How has your business evolved? And, what were the signs that it was time to change things up?
Yeah. So when I started in 2016, my main goal was to make an income. That's, I need to at least make what I was making in the security of an office job. And so if I was able to do that, I was really happy. Like, that was just my goal. Like, okay, I'm being successful. And that was probably 6 months of happiness to where, you get your systems down and it's like, this is not enough. Like, this was all fine and dandy, but something else needs to happen here. And so that's when I started tuning into probably other people, and listening to their systems. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Brennan Dunn, who talks a lot about freelancing systems, and Joanna Weeb with Copy Hackers, and Copy Bloggers was really big. Copy Blogger was really big at that time. Yes. And so really kind of tuning into them and realizing, okay, there's a system and a structure here. And there's a lot more to the way that I can kind of structure my business, present myself than what I am. And so I think that for the next 2 years, the experience that I had in the next 2 years is really what kind of led me to where I am now, is because what I did is, I think probably what you've heard many women talk through, is you listen to those experts, you tune into the mentors, you watch what everybody's doing, and you just play that game of Simon Says, right? You just plug and play, you just follow in the footsteps, you just do it. And it feels okay and right, like in the moment, because you don't know anything else. You're like a 2-year-old following in the footsteps of your parent. You don't know what else to do. But I think as you get more and more of your bearings, some of us realize this just isn't working, because I've taken everybody else's appendages and plugged them into my own body and expect them to work for me. And so probably in mid 2017, but definitely by 2018, I started taking a step back and asking questions about our industry. Like, is what we're doing really helpful? And it just feels empty and not aligned with who I am. Like something just doesn't feel right. And that wasn't unusual. I've always been that outlier. You know, I've always said, I'm always the one on the outside of the house looking in the window watching. And so there was a lot of probably resistance for me to accept what was going on in my head of this isn't right, because I was in tuned enough with knowing I'm an INFJ, I'm an Enneagram type 4. And so you're going to always feel like you see things differently. And so I think that there was some of that, me just sitting in pause, like, is this really something, or is this just, 40 something Lindsay going through the same life that she's lived forever? But as I worked with more and more women and really tuned into what they were struggling with and watching how they tried to plug and play and it didn't work, and just, pivoting over and over again. Yes. I knew that there needed to be a shift. And so that knowledge is what led me to where I am now today.
And I talk so much about alignment with my clients, because I can tell you what to do. I go on reels every day and do this and do that. But if that feels completely out of alignment with who you are and how you show up, you're not going to do it. You're going to resent it. And you're not going to actually be showing up for your clients as authentically as possible. And the whole point of working with an individual is you get them as them. You get them as an individual with their own gifts and their own way of doing things. And this whole plug and play and what the gurus tell us to do, follow my system for five-figure days, you're going to be a six-figure entrepreneur. They don't work en masse. We get told they do, but they don't work because they're so out of alignment with how so many people work. And it makes me question our industry also. And I've talked about it a lot, and that lack of authenticity that comes through so frequently, that come and watch my live webinar, which is not live at all. And I rail against it constantly.
Yeah.
And it is so frustrating. So showing up as that aligned and authentic Lindsay allowed you to create your niche in a very big industry. And they reckon that the coaching industry is going to get to $1 billion a day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It blows my mind.
It's crazy. And I think that what that does is it points to the fact that people know that they need help and they don't know where else to look. And so they're just grasping. And it's a really scary thing to step out and say, I'm just going to be myself and lead with myself, because so much of that is against the grain of what we're being taught. And so I think as women, especially, there's this constant tension of this doesn't feel right, but who am I to step off of the track and take a different path? That's really scary. And so what I believe that it does is it forces a lot of women off of the playing field much sooner than it ought to, because they just determine that the problem is me, instead of understanding that the problem is the system that they've been given to play within. So that's been something that I've just been very passionate about and committed to helping more women succeed just by truly being themselves. And that's language that's used a lot, just be yourself, I think that we don't always have the tools to actually figure out how to do that. Because we have grown up in such a noisy globe. And so how do we be ourselves? And so that's the essence of my work, is really helping women get to the core of who they are, so that they can see that and it can be spoken into their lives, and they can cling to that in those moments of doubt, fear, insecurity, when business goes bad, when a global pandemic happens, all of that stuff, all you've got left is the core of who you are.
And it's interesting because we are, one of the questions I always ask my clients is, who do you want to work with? And inevitably they come back and said, I was told I should work with people. And should is my least favorite word. Let's just get that out of the way. Because we are brought up in this, as businesses, we come from a place of self-doubt, and it's really difficult starting a business. Let's just say that out loud. And we do look to the people who appear to be successful as guides as to what to do in our own business. And we often don't see behind the scenes. We don't see beyond the shiny Instagram accounts and the 10,000 followers, and we go, oh, they've got 10,000 followers, they must be successful. But we don't know beyond that shiny exterior. And so we're led to believe that that's what equals success, those vanity metrics. And it frustrates me. You don't have to connect with 10,000 people. You just have to connect with 5 people who actually want to hear what you have to say, instead of it being shoved down your throat. Anyway, off my soapbox.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And finding the right community. Like, it's easy to start a business and feel like, well, that's the place to be because that's where all the support or whatever it is. But that might not be the right community for you to be plugging into, because it might not help you flourish. And to just give yourself, like, let's say you're a photographer. And so there's a really popular photographer Facebook group led by these popular leaders. And so you feel like you've got to be there, but you realize you're just mixing and mingling with a bunch of other photographers. It's not feeding your business. And so where else can you plug into to actually help you grow? Because that's been probably a revelation for me in the last year, is realizing, okay, you've spent all of your time connecting with people just like you, which is great. It matters. It helps.
Support.
But you also have to figure out, where are my actual clients and how can I connect? What are the communities that I need to be plugged into to connect to them?
Because we talk about, where do your ideal clients hang out? And often we think our ideal clients are like us. They're not always. And that's why that research is so useful. Anyway, we could probably talk about that all day, but we won't. Obviously, you had 4 kids, busy life. How do you manage your life as an entrepreneur? Because it can be hectic.
It can be hectic. I think for me, it's one, embracing the tension. And what I mean by that is recognizing what your rhythms are and need to be, and then being okay with that, because that's something I really struggle with. And so that's why I say that. So for example, I'll get up, the kids will get off for the day. And really, for me to get into my business owner shoes, I just have to sit with myself for like an hour to an hour and a half, whether it's reading or whatever it is. And then if I'm at my desk, button chair by 10 a.m., then I'm great. And I always struggle with guilt over that, because I know that there's people button chair at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. And so I feel lazy, which is a ridiculous sense of guilt, right? Because what is it that works for me? What works for me is button chair at 10 a.m. And then understanding that my most productive hours are probably, like, unfortunately, from about 1:30 to 4, because the kids start rolling in at 3 o'clock, so, but that's
like,
when it's like, please don't interrupt me. But that's when my brain really starts to make the connections. So I think that's one, is just embracing the tension of, you're always going to have this feedback loop coming into you of what your day should look like, how your behavior ought to look like as a business owner. But are you able to be productive? Are you able to meet your own metrics, your own goals within the framework you've set up? And if so, just be okay with that. So that's one thing. I don't know if I got off track.
I'm all for going off track, because it's interesting, because we talk about, days of the week. I'm hopeless on a Monday. regardless
Yeah.
of whether I've had a busy weekend. Mondays, I'm just like, I just can't. Occasionally I'm like, yeah, bang. But mostly I'm like, I just want to dawdle around for a bit and procrastinate. But it's letting go of that guilt and that expectation, because the only person putting that expectation on you is you. And if
Absolutely.
you're getting your work done, meeting your clients' expectations, just let it go.
Yes, let it go and adjust, just play with your schedule. And so say, like, it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because Mondays are same for me. They're just like, oh. And so I've learned to like delegate, to send all of those annoying business owner tasks that aren't hard, but they're just time consuming. Maybe it's paying the credit card bill, or just organizing your Google Docs, or whatever it is. Those tasks that always get put off, I put those on my Mondays, because it's easy for me to be like, okay, I can sit here and just do that. I don't have to think about it. I'm just doing it. It makes me feel good, like I've actually been productive on the day.
Well, you have.
Yes. So that's another thing, like giving yourself credit for those small tasks that don't feel like the $100 task or the $500 an hour task, but you still, as a solopreneur, have to take care of the $25 an hour task, and giving yourself credit for that instead of feeling like you're wasting your time. Like that's been a struggle for me as well, because I haven't delegated out.
Me either.
I haven't wanted to. Like, I've resisted bringing on a VA. I've just kind of resisted that siren call of building out my team. And so if that's where I'm going to be, then I have to be content with knowing I'm just going to have all these different levels of task, and I'm not wasting time. I'm doing what I need to.
So I too do not have a VA, which people find shocking sometimes and surprising, because for me, it's another burden. It's another person I have to manage in my life, and I don't need that. So
Right.
what's your resistance around having a VA? Because I'm always interested to meet people who don't have one.
That's part of it. Like, I already manage 5 people in my household and a dog.
I've got 2 rabbits. They're just as much trouble
yes,
as my 2 kids.
I'll often say, I don't want to be responsible for putting bread on somebody else's table. It's stressful enough for me to have to worry about it for myself. And I just don't feel like I can handle like, I'm a fast worker. And so I don't feel like I need that. I hear a lot of my own business mentors, my own mentoring communities talk about, oh, you should get a VA, as though it's almost a feather in your cap that you've somehow arrived to a certain level. And so I feel like there are sometimes you step up and you do those things because you feel like, well, this will make me official. This will make me official. Yes. And then you wind up not bringing home the revenue that you could, because you're splitting it when you don't need to. But if you want a VA, great, that's awesome. But for me, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm good with that. I don't know if I'll ever bring one on.
I don't know if I will either. Interesting to meet someone else. So how do you manage your days other than Mondays? What's a really amazing day look like for you in the office? What's your favorite way to spend your time?
I reserve my Tuesdays and Thursdays really for my call days. Those are my client call days. That way my Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are for me, whether it's me really immersing myself in my client work, or doing those terrible Monday tasks. But Tuesdays and Thursdays always feel like my most on calendar productive days, because they are filled with client calls. A good day for me is where I close my computer and I walk away from my office and feel like I helped create not necessarily an aha moment for my client, but a moment for my client where a breakthrough moment where they were able to move the needle on whatever it is that they needed that needle moved. And so when I've been able to sit with them for long enough, and not necessarily face to face, but just immerse myself in their world where I see it, that's when I feel like I've really had a great day. Now being patient with myself long enough for that to happen, that's the hard piece. I often describe myself as a method writer. You're familiar with method acting?
Mm. Yeah,
So
you sit there and do the writing.
yes. Well, like Daniel Day-Lewis, and I think Jim Carrey has done some method acting. And so these actors will lose themselves, like they will completely immerse themselves in the world of the character that they're playing. And that's how my work feels. Like my husband knows when I'm deep into the muck with a client, because I'm there, but I'm not. And I'm doing so much of that work in my head. That it can feel like I just stare out the window all day long and don't strike a key on the keyboard, because I'm doing all of that internal processing.
It's interesting because I'm quite similar. And last year when we were homeschooled, so I had my 5-year-old who started school last year and my husband in the office with me. I was like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Awful. I would have lost it.
I did on occasion. I did on occasion. There were tears, his tears, my tears. There were tears. And it's interesting because when you work in marketing, as you and I do, especially as writers, I think you spend a lot of your time either in the place of your client working out their strategy or in the place of their clients. And so you've got to get in those headspaces. And that's why knowing your clients and knowing your clients really well is so informative. But it's not just about, their name's Debbie, they're 35, they live blah. It's about how are they feeling in that moment when they're reading this and when they're making that purchasing decision. And so I'm like you, I get really deep in that and I'll be like smashing out content, but don't ever try and call me, speak to me, anything when I'm in that. Right. And that's why I think we've got to block out that time. And I do the same thing. I block out Wednesdays and Fridays, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I speak to clients. Sometimes I did a client call on Monday this week. You'd be proud.
Oh, go. That's awesome. That's always dangerous for me because I'm like, am I going to remember that this is even on my calendar if I put it on a Monday?
It's such a relief to hear someone else say that.
That's why we need a VA.
Hey, Jane, you're meant to be on Zoom right now. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm hungry. And I'm like, I always snack a lot on a Monday.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I'm laughing. Oh, gosh. So what tools do you use to be more efficient or productive in your business?
Yeah. So since I don't have a VA, I do try to automate out what I can. So I still use Calendly.
Yeah, so do I.
And my link, here you go. Yeah, it's great. I use Trello and bring my clients into their own Trello boards so that we can just manage our communications that way. And that makes it easy too, because I can duplicate boards for programs that, are very similar. And so I'm not starting from scratch every single time. And then I don't have a major CRM, like I don't use a Dubsado or anything like that. I just don't feel like I need it. And the other tool that I use is Better Proposals to build out my proposals, and which makes it really slick and really easy. And clients always love that. Like they just are always like, what is that tool? We want to implement it in our company as well. And so that's always fun. But those are really the 3 main tools that I use. And then the rest, Google Docs.
Google Docs
doesn't even feel like a tool anymore. That's like saying Zoom is a tool.
Yeah. Zoom is my number 1 tool, as it turns out.
Yes, exactly. So that's it. So I really keep it minimal, very little overhead, which is how I like it.
My accountant was like, you run a very lean business.
Yes.
Like, well, it's because we start off really lean and then you grow and you do what you need to do, but still so much of what you and I do is in here.
Exactly.
And it's just getting it from, for those listening to the podcast, I'm pointing at my head. It's getting it out of our heads and documented. That's the real hard part. Except when we're in that method writing, which I'm going to think about now every time I do it.
Yeah, I love it.
We talked about self-doubt earlier, and one of the questions I always ask is imposter syndrome. How do you manage imposter syndrome? What are your methods for overcoming the bad days in business? And we all have them. So if you can share, I'd appreciate it.
I think it's interesting that we talk so much about imposter syndrome lately. When we grew up, I never even heard, I might have heard of imposter syndrome, but I'm sure
wasn't a
my
thing.
my children know it probably like they know the word watermelon, it's just normal. And I think that speaks to I think that speaks somewhat to our social network world, where we're always on, we're always playing the comparison game. We're always seeing what other people are doing and then measuring ourselves up against that. And so I think that goes hand in hand, especially for me. And so I think for me, imposter syndrome really is just all about insecurity, which is probably for most of us, right? And so when mine flares, that's when I always have to take a step back and kind of think about what is going on around me that I need to turn off. And so whether that's social media, which is
Usually.
almost always, that's what it is. Yeah. Or it's, gosh, Lindsay, you haven't reached out to another living soul outside of your household for the last 12 weeks. Maybe you need to call a friend, and so just intentionally connecting with others helps me get out of my own head. So that's another way that I manage it. And then the other way, and really this has been pretty intentional, I would say the last COVID year, has just been a grounding in my values and my goals. And I find that when I start to feel that imposter syndrome showing up deep in my gut, if I can just remind myself, who are you and what do you want? That helps that imposter syndrome to die down. But it has to be that continual awareness of, this is what's creeping in, and here's what you need to do to combat it. And just understanding it's always going to be there. It's always going to creep in. Insecurity, none of us are exempt from, none. It's just being able to recognize it creep in soon enough so that you can hedge it off.
It's interesting. I when I work with clients, I always start with their values, because every decision we make in our business and in our lives comes back to our values. I have my values on a post-it on my pinboard in front of my face. I also have a description of what I do for my clients. It's about expanding their vision for their lives. And that, who are you and what do you want? How do you show up for your clients? And when you reflect on that, it's so useful to go, I have done this for my clients. I have helped them improve their lives. And that can really, like I say to people, have all your testimonials in a Google Doc so you can just read them.
Yes.
Gives yourself a buck up.
Exactly. A bad day Google file.
Yeah.
One of the things that I discovered, there's a podcast that I don't listen to it as much anymore, but it's called Start Right Here. And it's two psychologists, and I can't remember their names right now, but they're kind of fun. They're two like old grizzled psychologists that lead this podcast, and they introduced the concept. You talked about how you hate the word should, and they introduced this concept called the should monster. And it really hit me at just the right time, because COVID was in full swing, and I felt like I had all this momentum in 2019
2020 was amazing.
Yes. And where I was supposed to go, and the story for the majority of us, it all just crashed. And I was having a hard time sorting through what's next, and just kind of thinking maybe what I wanted isn't really what I want anymore, and struggling with that imposter syndrome of tuning into all the people who were scaling, and me thinking, okay, maybe I need to scale to these multi six figures because I've reached my goals. So now what? Like, I've reached my goal, Lindsay. So what are you going to do now? That's where I was at. And I think, by the way, that's a lot of times when imposter syndrome comes in, when you're at that juncture of something. And so that's where I was. And so this podcast with the should monster, they said, make a list. And on one side, write, I want. And on the other side, write, I should. And on the I want side, start with the I should side. And on the I should side, write down all the things that you think that you should do. and exhaust it, like everything from business to life and whatever. And so I had things like, I should have it figured out by now. I should be making multi six figures. I should be more well known. I should be this, this, and this. When I went over to my wants, it was, I want to make a comfortable living for my family. That doesn't necessarily equate to multi six figures. I want to be a helper more than I want to be a thought leader. And so that knowledge was, okay, so what does that mean for stages for me and other things like that? And when I compared my wants, it became pretty clear that I felt so stuck and so oppressed and so weighed down by imposter syndrome because I was living in the shadow of the should monster. And so that's another tool that I have used for imposter syndrome, is just like keeping that list before me and kind of asking myself, when I feel stuck in that imposter syndrome spot, are you living in the land of the should monster or in the land of your wants? That's been a really helpful exercise for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because we did sit through 2020 looking at the people that were apparently flourishing through COVID, and it was really bizarre. I mean, we got hit with the bushfires first, and then COVID off the back of that. So we just had this extended period of not feeling very productive and not really doing very much in my business. So after 2019, which was absolute stellar year for my business, trying to come back from that over the past, or whatever it is now, 18 months, has been strange, because it does force you to reassess what's important. Like I'm going away on Monday for 2 weeks. I'm doing a week of board work. And then I went, I'm going to Queensland where it's sunny and warm. Yeah. Okay, kids, you're going to take a week off school and we're going on a family holiday in Queensland because I can. And I want to spend time with you, and I want to enjoy your company instead of this, come on, where's your socks? Where's your drink bottle? Turn the heater off, open the blinds. Is constant every day. Like my husband, like Groundhog Day of trying to get the kids out.
Yes. Oh, that is so true. I said that to my husband many times. Do you ever feel like we're just stuck in Groundhog Day? Because every day is the same. But...
Oh my gosh. Oh, fun fact, that movie was on while I was in labor with my first child. I do not recommend. Anyway, so I just, that was pretty much a harbinger of what was going to happen next. Anyway, so, and I just want to enjoy the company. And it's not about, for me, making the multi six figures and having this amazing income. The income facilitates the outcome I actually want. Because my husband's like, you're obsessed with going on holiday. And I'm like, my holiday, I get to spend time with my kids without the stress that we're always all under when we're in our daily lives. So it's not about just the income. It's about the impact we have on our clients and their lives, and what that gives to us in terms of our values and our lives. And anyway.
Yeah. And one thing for the other women out there listening, one thing that I think is important to note is that when these marketing gurus and voyeuristic, that's probably too strong of a word, these coaches show up and promise, I'll show you how to have 10K weeks, or, how to scale your income so that you can make multi six figures. The truth of being a multi six figure business owner is that you're not bringing all of that home. For me, if I want to move beyond my six figure income, I have to build a team. That's just the reality. I'm at the max of what I can do by myself. I can't scale unless I am willing to bring on a team. I'm not willing to bring on a team. I don't want that. And that's not the rhythm of life that I want to live. And so I'm not going to scale. And I'm okay with that. But I'm still bringing home a great income. I'm still having a great revenue because I'm the only one I have to pay. So when you're making multi six figures, you might be making 250, 500,000 a year, but you may have 5, 10, 15, 20 employees that you're paying out of that. And so what's the cost? And that was something that I weighed heavily, because as I listened to entrepreneurs talk about, I made $250,000 this year, but I paid $100,000 to contractors or employees. And I realized, then I don't want to do that. Like, that's just not what I want.
And that's just the financial cost. It's the emotional and mental costs as well. And the time that it takes to manage those people. And I just want to be doing what I'm doing, the way I do it, keep on keeping on. Yeah.
So it's just important to like understand that full promise and the cost of that full promise. They're showing you the number, but they're not showing you the behind the scenes of what it takes to actually get there.
And I've seen people buy into programs where they're like, you've got to have whatever, Kajabi and Entreport and this and that. And you've got to have it from the start. People are like, well, I'm going into like from the baseline, $500 a month expenditure just on programs. They're like, is everyone else doing this? This is what they've told me I need to do. And it's like, well, no, there's always an alternative. Just because they tell you you should be doing it doesn't mean you should be doing it. Always question it. There's always another way. So how do you maintain then your sense of community while working alone and possibly not leaving the house for 12 weeks?
Well, the world of Zoom has made that really easy. And so for me, it's being intentional about connecting and just understanding that intentionality is probably just going to have to come from me. Like, people aren't going to always be like, knocking on my door, because we're all busy. And just to be intentional about, hey, it's been a while since we've connected, let's talk. Or reaching out, via my WhatsApp to my friends across the world and just tuning in with them. Just making those intentional touch points. And people here locally that I know, reaching out to them and actually meeting them face to face for coffee. Like, that's fancy. So strange, right? Yeah. So that's the biggest way that I maintain community. Is it has to be very intentional on my part, because I am an introvert. I don't even think that I need that, right? Like, we don't think we do until we've hit rock bottom, and then we're like, crap, I haven't been connecting with anybody. That's probably half my problem. And so it just takes a high level of intentionality, because I'm perfectly happy with my husband and my kids. But I know that's not enough. Like, I have to have a community, because Ben, my husband, he doesn't get my business problems. And so I'll end up getting irritated with him, because I'll be in a moment of crisis and he just doesn't get it. Well, that's not his fault. So I'm putting
so we probably should stop blaming them for that.
Yes. So that's why that community is so important, of people that just understand the stress that you're going through, the struggles that you're dealing with, the client issues. So yeah, just a real high level of intentionality on my part.
Yeah, just getting out there, us little introverts into the world.
Yeah.
So what's your why? What keeps you motivated in your business?
Yeah. My why and what keeps me motivated is really the mission of my business is to help more women build heart and soul aligned businesses, is to help women succeed. One of my core values is be a friend. And that really is my why. Like, my why has always been step in, listen, and hear and see somebody else and help them achieve their highest potential, help them achieve their biggest goals. And so often people can't achieve that because they can't even see that potential there. And it's incredible to be able to be that person who steps in beside someone and says, this is what you are. Like, you thought you were this. No, you are so much more. And that is my why. Like, and that goes back to what's my best business day, that when I can walk away knowing I just helped breathe life into somebody, like they were ready to quit, or they were ready to just totally cut themselves short. That's why I keep showing up, because there are women out there selling themselves short when they shouldn't be.
And struggling. I see so many people just struggle and just it's such a privilege to be able to go, hey, you know what? Let's lay it out, do this, this, and this. And they're like, whoa, it sounds so simple when you put it like that. But that's what we do.
Right.
That's incredibly, and it's exhilarating when you do it for someone.
Yes. Yeah.
So what are your tips for all the smart women in business across the world?
Oh my goodness.
Number one, top three, top whatever.
I think number one would be this, based on what I've seen out of women I've worked with. I would say this, that thing that you're afraid to lead with it. And what I mean is I work with so many professional women that are stepping into areas, niches or different segments, and they feel like they have to put on a certain persona and hold back a certain part of who they are because they're afraid that part won't be accepted, that it won't be appropriate or whatever it is. And always, that's the missing piece. That's the thing that's holding them back. And so that's the first thing that I would say, is that thing that you're afraid to lead with it anyways. And that's going to help you. That's going to help you achieve your goal and win at the game that you're trying to win at. The other thing is that it's okay to define success differently than everybody else around you. It's okay. It's okay if success looks different for you. Because success is that's what success is. It's a very individual thing. So that's the other thing. And gosh, one other thing, probably because this has been near and dear to my heart for the last couple of months, is that your visibility strategy shouldn't be making you feel invisible. And if it is, then it's time to shift your strategy, because it's not working for you. Like if it's draining you and making you feel tiny and insignificant and like you're a failure, then close the account and find something else. Those would be three pieces of advice I would leave women with.
I love it. Thank you. So how can listeners find out more about you and your work and what you do, Lindsay?
Yeah, the best way is at my digital home, though it feels like my real home. It's lindsayhotmeyer.com. Will you put that in the show notes, or should I spell it?
In the show notes.
Okay, so it's in the show notes, so you know how to spell it. And there you can learn all about me. You can find some resources to help you, analyze your own web copy or find your superpower. There's a workshop, 24-minute workshop that you can access to really take you deep into kind of discovering who you are. Those are the ways. That's the best way to reach me. LinkedIn, they can find me on LinkedIn as well, but I'm not a social media butterfly, and so I'm hit or miss.
I got onto LinkedIn the other day to 84 messages and went, probably should come on here a bit more often.
It's been a while.
Oopsie daisy. Well, thank you for your time today, Lindsay. I really appreciate chatting with you.
It was great talking with you. Thanks so much.
Friends or peers or whatever online. It's like, okay, when are we booking the next one? And it might not be for 2 or 3 months, but at least it's in there. And then, if we need to shuffle it around, we shuffle it around. But you set the intention that I'm going to catch up again. And then I do the same, with my real life 3D friends here, where, we'll go out for dinner, like we just went out on the weekend with my little posse, and we're okay, when's the next one happening? And we book it in straight away. And that way it actually happens, because otherwise time flies. And next thing you know, you don't see people for a year.
Yeah, scary.
And that's just weird.
It is weird. And because we used to be so offline that it used to be something we had to do to find people. And now we feel that we're always caught up with people because of social media, But it's, I love, but what I love being in somewhere really rural is that online gives me a community, because I have people here, IRL friends, but there's not many people where I live. And because we don't have the school connection anymore, because we're not allowed into the school grounds and all of that. So online's kept me going socially over the last 18 months. What are we up to?
Yeah,
So,
and you know, Victoria's like really a tough place as far as Australia goes, a tough place to live in terms of COVID and all of that. I'm in South Australia. We're like, oh yeah, that's right, COVID.
COVID.
Like,
Yeah, well, we're
like
regional, so we've
it's
had
only
it
just
easier, but
lightly brushed us, you know.
yeah, we had 111 days of lockdown, I think, in a row last year.
Oh.
Homeschooling a prep.
I think, and also with lockdown, you know, I'm lucky in that I don't have school age kids anymore because I can't even imagine that. But it's also just that mental weight of I'm not supposed to go out. Well, I don't go out anyway, but now I'm not allowed.
Like to spend 10 weeks at home in theory, but don't make me do it.
Exactly. Don't tell me what I am and am not allowed to do. Don't you know I'm an entrepreneur and I don't take instruction?
Don't tell me what to do. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You know, that's what I kept going. It's fine. We'll be fine. But yeah, it was full on. So what's your why? What keeps you motivated? And you've touched on having a business, values-based business, having purpose. And so tell me
more about the why. So yeah, that's really ultimately, you know, sometimes, and because I deal very much with money, it can start to seem like it's all a bit superficial, but it's not at all, because money is this huge stressor in our society, and especially among entrepreneurial women looking to build their small business. And when you can take that out of the equation, you liberate them to actually do that amazing thing that they want to do. So that's my why. I like to think about all these women who are going, oh my God, I really don't want to have to go back to a job, and I really want this to succeed, and I don't want to look like a failure in front of my partner or my friends. And, you know, to liberate them from all of that and have them, you know, really love their business, and not just that, make that impact. Because I think that the more this, you know, small solo entrepreneurs thing starts gathering momentum, the more we start having those businesses that really care and make an impact. And it's, you know, a real move away from the big corporations and the, you know, you're just a number and that whole system, to, you know, really caring and deep and meaningful, connected way of doing business and serving people. And it just allows this whole other, you know, world to be unleashed, where, yeah, I can be a kinesiologist and work online and make 6 figures and I really help people. Or I can be a medical intuitive instead of being stuck in my nursing job, and I'm making more of a difference to people's health and well-being than I did, you know, by taking their blood pressure and giving them their pills every 4 hours. So, you know, it's a real shift in the world that happens as a result of women in particular being able to build their businesses. And that really excites me. And if I can, you know, help them by taking one of the big stress factors that keeps them playing small out of the equation, you know, my life is worth living. Like, I do have this big thing, like, I was sent here and I have this opportunity on earth, like, do something good with it. You know, I do feel that kind of not weighing on my shoulders, but I do feel that I better make sure I do make the most out of being here. Yeah, it's a responsibility.
It's like you have a responsibility to do that. It's a weird one, because I read this vague quote that I think the Dalai Lama said, but you've got to get the context about how Western women will change the world.
Yeah, because
we now have this power where we're women, but we've got money to amplify the impact that women can have. And we're like really very much the first, second generation to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's powerful. It's really powerful.
We're not oppressed like women used to be, and we have a voice now and we can make an impact. So yeah, totally.
That's amazing.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. We're excited. So what are your top tips then for the smart women in business across the world?
Top tips. Okay, top tip, I would say, this is not just based on my own experience, it's also based on all the work I do with everybody else. It's really important to get totally clear, and you're not going to do it all in one day. It's a continual work in progress, but to always stay really connected to what you really want and what truly lights you up and how you want to do it, because people are going to be full of ideas and suggestions and asking you to do things, telling you how great you are, how much you've helped them. And there's going to be coaches out there that sometimes you pay a lot of money that tell you to do things a certain way. You need to run every single thing through is that how I want to do things filter. You are, the master of your world, and you get to choose and you get to decide. So don't give away your power would be my number one tip. And the second top tip is, I had them and now I forgot them, which means I'm having to really think about it, which is good. So the second one, I would say, remember that the only thing that matters is when you react to whatever's going on. A really great question to ask yourself is, what am I making it mean? Because you get to decide whether something's good or bad, an opportunity or an obstacle. So remember that, your thoughts become things, and you're a powerful creator, and it's your mind that is the engine behind all of that. So just like I said, filter the ideas and see if they're a match for you, and make sure you're really grounded and cleared on what you want. Realize that you're also filtering everything you're observing through your model of reality, and constantly check in, because if you feel like things aren't going very well, are they really? Or have you just decided that everything that's happened means things aren't going well? And constantly kind of check in with yourself, like be your own coach, and constantly check in on your mindset and what you're making things mean. I think, what am I making it mean? This mean is a really great question to just always have, ready to whip out.
Have it there, ready to go, because we construct our own reality.
Yep.
And
something happens and we go, oh shit, that means that was a bad idea, or that means I'm on the wrong track, or that means my business is doomed, or whatever. And does it? Does it really?
What could be more true than that? These are the interesting conversations I have with Miriam.
Yes.
How can people find out more about you and your work, Miriam? Because I'm sure a lot of people listen to this and go, I need more Miriam in my life.
Cool. Well, if you love the sound of my voice and you want to hear more of it, jump on my YouTube channel. So it's called Miriam Castilla TV, which I decided was I think I was very Marie Forleo influenced early in my business career.
Look, I'll live to regret my URL forever, because it's so long. Anyway,
so long. Yeah. So long. Miriam Castilla TV on YouTube.
I'll link it.
Or you can jump, if you want to look at some free resources I have and so on, you can jump on my website, miriamcastilla.com. Castilla is with 2 L's.
2 L's, and I will link it in the show notes. Thank you so much for today, Miriam. It has been beautiful.
It was so fun. We did go everywhere, didn't we, in our conversation?
We always do. Thanks, Miriam.